This is a story that I'm surprised of all the ones that make headlines and poll good. And it's not that inflation is not important. It's not that the border's not important. And it's not that, the economy or all these other issues. It's not that they're not important. It's why doesn't this get mentioned more? Because this sounds scary as hell. Fort Worth has 900 untested rape kits, and my first impression is like, is that more or less than normal? Because NBC5 broke the story, and then there's a good sort of elaboration in the Dallas Observer, and that's not normal because the entire state of Texas has 1,130 untested rape kits. So more than half, way more than, I know that is kind of breaking news. So if you broke that down, it's like 1 out of, or 5 out of 6 untested rape kits in Texas or in Fort Worth. Now we have a problem. Now I'm freaked out. Let's ask someone who actually knows a little bit about this. Javier Pérez, he's an attorney. Crain Brogdon, welcome back to the James Show. Am I overreacting? Is there an explanation on why we have 900 untested rape kits in Fort Worth, Javier?
I don't think you're overreacting, and the explanation that's been provided is, frankly, disappointing at best. As you read in the story, Fort Worth has the lion's share of these untested rape kits for the whole state. And it's just incredible that this is exactly why they passed this law in 2019 to require that the kits be submitted for testing within 30 days and that they be tested within 90 days. And so for the vast majority of the untested kits to come from one city, 43% of all of them to not be in compliance with this 2019 law is just astounding that it would be this far out of compliance.
Okay, so I remember what you're talking about. When was that law? It was a few years ago about the untested rape kits. There were some people coming through and saying, look, it's not that unusual to have untested rape kits if the guy pleads guilty or confesses immediately. It would make sense that they're not going to waste the taxpayer money and the time and the effort to go have that thing tested. He already admitted it. We know the answer is yes. There's also instances where the guy either dies in jail or he gets shot in the process, or he gets shot afterwards before they can catch him and bring him in. And so I can see why those rape kits wouldn't be tested. I feel like that's not what we're dealing with here, though, given the numbers of how many are in Fort Worth compared to elsewhere.
Right. And I think if they're going to take it out of kind of the processing protocol, that'd be one thing. But this is they're not even starting to process them. And they're months late, sometimes over a year late that they haven't been tested. From my reading of this reporting, it looks like Fort Worth is the only or one of the only metropolitan police departments that has its own testing facility. And so they're trying to keep it in-house maybe, and the in-house facility is understaffed. I think they said they have room for 8 of the laboratory people, and only 3 of those slots are filled. But, I mean, that doesn't really explain why they're not even getting sent for testing.
Yeah, that's a lame excuse.
It's a big mess.
So shouldn't somebody be charged with a crime or go to jail?
I mean, I don't know that there's that extreme or that serious of a penalty, but it is a good question. It's okay, so you set this rule for them to comply within the specific timeline, but what happens when they don't? I think that's the open question. Is there's not an incentive for them or penalty to get them into compliance. There's also apparently funding available from the state if it really is an issue of understaffing. So I agree there needs to be some kind of consequence for this, but I think that's not been kind of set out in the 2019 law, and it's certainly just coming to light now. So hopefully they figure something out here.
All right, so Fort Worth, it looks like they're dropping the ball. Thank goodness NBC5 and the Dallas Observer are following up. But what can we do to make sure that this thing gets resolved? I mean, do we file a class action lawsuit? Is there anything the guy listening can do?
I mean, I don't know that we have anyone that's as upset about this as we all may be, can do kind of legally speaking, because we wouldn't have standing to file a lawsuit because we weren't individually harmed.
What if it was a rape victim? Could they sue?
I mean, it's a good question. I think if the rape victim is kind of involved in kind of the criminal process here, she's the victim in the prosecution of the defendant. There may be some remedy there for them to get maybe the judge in their particular case involved. What was disappointing to see is when they talked to the public information officer from Fort Worth PD, she was saying, well, really, the only thing to do is for y'all to call up to the PD and basically harass the people and say, hey, did you test it yet? Did you test it yet? Will you please test it yet? When are y'all going to test it? And that's just not acceptable.
Give me the number. Give me the number. I'll call it on the show. We'll make it a bit. We'll just do it every day. We'll say, hey, it's 3:30. Time to call Fort Worth about the untested rape kits. Javier, you did not make me feel any better about this story, but this is important that I needed to know the truth, even if I don't like it.
I know. I mean, it is very upsetting, and especially like that law was put in place because this had already been a problem. And now that they're required to comply, and they're not doing it, and it just is not acceptable.
Is your website still crainbrogdon.com?
That's right.
All right. Thank you very much. Again, Javier Pérez, I appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care.